Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with TPS, informal conversations with thought leaders of India and abroad. Today, we have two exceptional people with us, Sabriye Tenberken and Paul Kronenberg. Sabriye is characterized as a visionary without vision. Paul calls himself, what engineer are you?
Change engineer.
Right. So he's an engineer who is bringing about change. And they are the founders of Kanthari. Of course, Keralites will know what Kanthari means. Small in size, but great in impact. And that is exactly what they're doing. They call themselves a small organization, but which is bringing great change to the world. We'll hear more about their work from them. Welcome, Sabriye and Paul.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you.
Good. Well, let us start with Tibet. That's a very, very exciting thing to talk about, very exotic, because both of you started your social engineering work from Tibet.
Yeah.
So Sabriye, I believe, lost her vision at the age of 12. After that, she did Tibetology and then developed Tibetan Braille. And then she's dealing with universal Braille system through computers. How did your interest in Tibet begin? And how was it in Tibet, the years that you spent there? Sabriye.
Yeah, I discovered my interest for Tibet in high school, actually through an exhibition. And I was lucky to be in an exhibition where they exceptionally opened the vitrines and gave me all these beautiful instruments and teacups and all these ancient things that they discovered in Tibet. They gave it in my hand and I could ask a lot of questions. And I think that gave such a huge impression on me that I thought I would like to know more. And I was actually on a search. I was on a search of what I wanted to do after school. And what I knew was I wanted to have an adventurous life. I also wanted to claim the risk, the right for having a risk or risking something, because if you're blind in Germany, or also if you're blind in India, people don't trust you to take risks or to have an adventurous life. You better stay home. You better stay where people are taking care of you.
They become
this is something.
They become very protective, right?
Exactly. And this was not the life that I was looking for. And also I wanted to do something where I could take over responsibility and where I could create something. And then I thought, okay, why not going to Tibet? It sounds adventurous enough. I love horses. I knew that in many parts of Tibet, you have to have a horse to be able to go from A to B. I love water. I love white water. Therefore, I thought, Tibet is exactly the right place for me. And
but the Chinese government had no objection to your going there, because Tibet is a sensitive place. They must be wondering why you want to go to Tibet.
You mean from the government?
From the Chinese government, there was no difficulty.
Yeah, no. Well, actually, I was lucky not to foresee all these difficulties. I was naive enough, and sometimes when you are so naive, you get through a lot of borders. Now, I went to Tibet, and the first thing that I did was I tried to find out about blind people in Tibet, and I showed them my Braille system. And then with all this experience that I had, I went to the government, and I said, look, you don't have a school for the blind, I make you one. And they were probably so much in shock because they have never seen a blind person coming confidently into their offices, that they said, okay. So just to get me out of their office, they gave me all the forms and all the permissions that I needed with all these nice Chinese red stamps. And I also do feel they felt that I was not harmful. in a Tibet political sense. That was also not my major thing. I didn't want to be an activist about Tibet, free Tibet or whatever, right? That was not my interest. My interest was really doing something for the many blind people in the Tibet Autonomous Region. And therefore,
you said somewhere that blind people are kind of ostracized in Tibet because they believe that this is some kind of a punishment for the sins committed in the previous births. That's a very deep prejudice. How did you overcome that?
The Tibetans, luckily or unluckily, well, I don't know what to say, but they have been subject to many, many changes in the past 50 or past 100 years even. In this way, I think they were able to change their perception. You know, this whole thing of punishment is also not only in Tibet, it's also there in India. You have the karma perception that people who are disabled have been punished by something that you have done in your past life. And this is exactly the same in the Buddhist context. Now, when we started and we had empowered our blind kids and we went with them to a monastery, for example, and they were talking to a lama, and the lama was saying, well, you are punished for something you have done in your past life. They were smart enough to immediately counter and say, hey, wait a minute, if I was punished, why am I now so happy in this life? There's some kind of contradiction about this being punished. And I think this is the only way to cross this belief and to make people rethink and to make people change their perception. It's really change from within, something that is also very, very important for Kanthari here, what we have started here in Kerala.
And Paul, how did you get to Tibet? You went there after Sabriye went there, or you went on your own?
I always, when I tell the story, I say sometimes in life you're at the right place at the right time. And this was 1997 when I was in Tibet, and well, I met Sabriye, and the first question I asked her, I said, what are you doing here? Sightseeing? And she
said, okay,
pretty good sightseeing.
To sightsee in Tibet. And that's how you decided to be together.
I was there as a traveler, as a backpacker. And then Sabriye told me her life story. And I said, you know what?
Paul, what are you doing in Tibet?
I was there as a backpacker. I just was, I had a lot of extra overtime that I worked, and I had to go somewhere. And by pure coincidence, I ended up in Tibet, and by even more coincidence, I ended up in the place where Sabriye was. She told me her life story, and then I was interested. I said, we do this together. So about 8.5 months later, she called me up, and I was back in Holland, and she said, next week I'm going back to Tibet, and I didn't say anything. And she said, you don't have to cry or anything. We don't know each other that well. And I said, you know what, I'll join you. So the next day I quit my job, and 5 days later we went back together, and best decision I've ever made.
You started this institution there, both of you together.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
We started Braille Without Borders, and not so much without borders like Doctors Without Borders, but it was the mental borders that we are talking about.
And so how would you evaluate your contribution there? How much were you able to do?
Yeah.
Maybe I can tell as because you asked the question earlier about the situation, and so there was one key moment I think for Sabriye as well. She went on horseback through Tibet, and she found lots of children. They were locked away in dark rooms and they were left there to die. It was a terrible situation, and luckily on that same trip, she met Tenzin. Tenzin had this smile on his face, and he said, "Oh,
blind.
And he's blind, yeah." So he said, "You're blind. I'm blind too." And Sabriye was wondering because all the other ones she saw, they were like vegetables, and so she asked him, "What do you do?" Here come the basics. That's we always use this as the basic and the foundation of Kanthari and Braille Without Borders. He was the yak herder in the village, so he had a task. If you have a task, you have value. If you have value, you're respected. If you're respected, you get dignity, and then self-confidence can come. A lot of people, they never get to dignity, so their self-confidence is fake. So they have a big car, trophy husband or wife, big house, like expensive gadgets, but inside they're really, it's not much, that they can stand for. And so for Sabriye, then she understood. She said, okay, I want to, it's very clear now what we have to do. We have to bring these students together, give them skills, And with these skills, they get this value, they get the dignity, and through that, they get self-confidence so to go back into society and integrate themselves into regular schools. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and nowadays our kids are quite successful. I mean, they are not kids anymore. They run their big businesses. A lot of them are quite wealthy now, right? And I don't think that has to be the ultimate goal, but some of them are really skilled in making business. Others are
training entrepreneurs, so they ought to be wealthy. You don't become an entrepreneur to be poor.
Nothing against that, but of course, I mean, we are training here in Kanthari, we are training social change agents, so who want to create a positive difference in society. And also there, we have kids, former students, who do this, right? Who are running foundations or who are setting up tutoring projects and all these kind of things. So these kids are not sidelined anymore. They are actually really in the middle of society. And more than that, they are not everybody's darling, right? They are not just yes sayers, and they have their own standpoints. They are risk takers. They're ethical, and they are able to follow their dreams. And much more than that, they're embracing the fact that they are blind and seeing blindness as actually as a springboard or as an opportunity. And this is something that I really would like to change here in India as well. Blindness here is seen as a disability, as something really, really bad. Why not looking at the beautiful things of being blind? So, for example, not being able to be distracted or not being distracted by Hollywood and Bollywood, really being able to focus, really being able to imagine things, to solve problems, because we constantly have to solve problems. And this future, also, when we are looking into future, we cannot see the future. We cannot see the problems that are awaiting us. So I think blind people are absolutely predestinated to solve problems for the future, right? And why not looking at the strengths of blind people rather than looking at what they cannot do, rather than looking at the imperfection? Because after all, imperfection was always the mother of invention. If we were not imperfect, we would not be able to invent and to create all these beautiful things that are now around us. And this is exactly what I see about blindness. And our blind kids, they have shown this to the world. And I think now we have to just implement it in many other societies as well.
I spoke to one of your students, Tiffany, you must be knowing, Tiffany Brown, and she made almost the same point. She said that blindness gave her an opportunity to do exceptional things. So I'm not surprised. Yeah. But did you thus create a social revolution in Tibet by showing that blind people can really be of service to the society? And did they remove that prejudice?
Yes. Well, I'd like to give you an example. We had two examples. One is Kyumi. Kyumi was one day standing in the courtyard. He was, I think, 5 or 6 years old. He's still very young, but he already knew English and he did a lot of stuff. And Kyumi was standing there and he's always shaking his hands like this. And he does that when he's happy. And he was smiling from ear to ear and I said, "What's up, Kyumi?" And he says, "I'm so happy." And we said, "Why?" And he says, "Because," and because is the first word they learn in English in our school. They have to think. So he says, "Because I am blind." And then we started to continue. He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm the only one in my family that speaks 3 languages. Or in my village that speaks 3 languages, right? I'm only one in my village or in my family that can read and write. I can read and write in the dark. And I'm the only one that knows that the world is round in my entire region, and and I'm surfing on the internet. And not despite, but because I am blind." So he understood that he had this chance to get access to a study. And the second example is Tsering Namu. Tsering Namu came to us. She was only 4.5 years old, and she was beaten up at home. And we asked her if she wanted to go home for the summer holidays, and she said no. And then she told us her mom was beating her. And we said, "Why?" So she's been with us for just a few months. And then this little girl came and she said, "I don't know why, but now I know that she doesn't have the right to." That's very, very powerful, because that is some women, they don't know, even if they're 40, 50 years old, that the husband has no right to hit them. Right, and this girl understood that, and we were very worried because about a year later, we asked her, "Do you want to go home?" And she said yes. So she went home, and she didn't return on time. We thought, "Oh, there's something wrong." And then 2 weeks late, she came in. The door opened up. Mom, Dad on both of her hands, and the parent said, "You gave us a new daughter." She was able to speak Chinese with the village leader. She was some tourists got lost in the village, so she was the only one in the whole village that could speak English with them, and she was showing them around and showing off her skills, of course. And this was a huge growth, and that's what we believe is true empowerment, right? And that's what happened. And they themselves went into schools and showed that blindness is not a problem. It's the problem how decided society is treating them.
And the government welcomed this change.
Sorry, say again?
Tibetan authorities had no problem with this new kind of service or change that you are bringing about, because they have
I
these.
think they were,
Sorry.
I think they were watching us very carefully. After a while, they figured out that we were really, really interested in blind people, and they understood that a lot of media agencies were really interested in these blind people, because whenever they came to our school, they were greeted in Chinese and English. They could do interviews. They would not duck down. They would not shy away. They were confident little human beings, right? And of course, at a certain point, the school was one of the most known projects in all over China, not only in Tibet, but also all over China. So I think for the Tibetan Chinese authorities, this was kind of a model project, right? Because of course there's a lot of ambivalent news about Tibet, and there was something positive that would also be positive anywhere else in the world. And see, for us, it was really about showing if it's working in Tibet, of all places, then it can work everywhere else in the world, right? We had children who were so agile and so easy to climb a tree and jump on a bareback on a horse and go ice skating and run and jump and hide. I mean, these kids are not sitting at home, are not ducking down, are not being led always, but are really there in this world fully with their full confidence. And I think this is something that we have to show to the world. It is possible, whether in Germany, whether in England, whether in India, whether in America, it is possible.
But after you left, the institution has continued?
No, unfortunately not. What happened was we were the last NGO that was operating in Tibet.
Foreign NGO.
Last foreign NGO. They asked everyone to leave for whatever reason, we don't know. And then we got a new disability department, and the old one was very much in favor of us. The new one didn't understand what we were doing. And they just thought, oh, these foreigners, they are bringing some foreign ideas. What is this, right? Then the whole suspicion started, and they said, well, we have a school for disabled children. Why not putting all the blind in the school for disabled children? And this was actually very sad, because the Chinese Disability Federation is very, very advanced and very progressive. They were absolutely for integration. They were absolutely for empowerment. And here they come. Here, some officials who had no idea came to Tibet. They had no idea about the empowerment of disabled people, and they just put everybody in one house, wall around, and out of sight. Instead of supporting our blind kids to go to regular schools, what we did before. Now, in a way, it was regressive. In a way, they did exactly what the Disability Federation in China didn't want them to do. But what to do? I mean, these people didn't know better. And I think, now the blind have to suffer. Luckily, we got 300 blind people still in the regular school system. They went through through senior high school, through university. Some of them became or studied law or journalism, and really difficult subjects, even in China. And now a lot of them show to the society that they can take their own lives in their own hands, and that is important.
So you had to leave because all foreigners had to leave. It was nothing personal to you.
Yeah, no.
No, I think we were there for 19 years, and so I think there's only 5 people in the world that has been longer than 14 years in Tibet. We're 2 of them. So I think that in that sense it was, the time has come. We knew at some point that is going to happen, and that's why we looked at what else can we, and that's how we got here. We came to Kerala.
Well, that's the next question. How did you come to Kerala of all places?
Good question.
Yeah.
The long way.
Yeah, we were newcomers in this whole thing of starting non-for-profit organizations, and we made a lot of mistakes. I mean, we were not very diplomatic at times. We were not really good at fundraising in the very beginning. We didn't know really that we should actually ask, that we had to put an ask into a proposal, and all these little things that gave us a lot of problems. And then we thought, in a way, we would have needed a school which trains us, which empowers us to do what we are doing, to do what we are passionate about doing. And then we looked around. Are there any schools in the world for social change makers? For people who want to run social organizations or environmental organizations? And there was nothing. There were some courses about social entrepreneurship, but it was all business. But we wanted to start schools. We wanted to think of, or we thought of training centers. We thought of environmental projects. We also did an ecological farm in Tibet on 4,000 meters, and nobody told us or showed us how to do it. Yeah, and since we didn't find anything, we said, why not starting it ourselves? And why not using all our experiences, but not only our experiences, but also all the failures that we had and all the mistakes that we made as a base to empower others. And it doesn't matter whether they want to start blind projects. It's not only about blind projects. It's about social projects. It's about social ideas, social initiatives. And of course, also environmental initiatives, because now very, very important environmental and peace initiatives become more and more important.
Maybe I can add to that. So the approach that we have is a change from within.
Yeah.
So Kanthari, it's all about change from within. It's not. If somebody from outside comes in and says,
"Hear about Kerala." When did you hear the word Kerala and this about this?
When do we hear the word Kerala?
Aha,
Okay.
yeah.
You heard.
Yeah. I see. We lived in Tibet for a long time, and it's dry, and cold, and we were longing for water, for fruits, for greenery, and I knew that Kerala was full of water, and I knew, of course, that Kerala was one state with the most educated people in India. And we thought, like, where is a central place in this world? Now, a lot of people, especially North Indians, they think like central place in this world. Kerala is really not central. This is the backyard of India. And we thought, hey, wait a minute, it's not the backyard. You just turn the whole map upside down, and then it's on the head of India. And in a way, Kerala was always the gateway to, for example, to Europe before. All our spices we got from Kerala, right? And everything that made our lives beautiful came from Kerala. So this is what I knew about Kerala. And then we were talking to a New York Times journalist in 2003 already. And he asked us, what do you want to do? And we said, well, we would like to go to Kerala. And he thought that Americans don't really know where Kerala is. So he mentioned south of India. Okay, that was good enough. Luckily, we found, or luckily, this newspaper article, which was on the back page of, on the very, very back on the New York Times, was read by Naveen Ramachandran, and his family had a little estate here in Neramangat. And he read this and he said, well, I want to come to Kerala and I want to show you Kerala. And you should really set up something here. Don't go to Tamil Nadu, go to Kerala immediately. And then we did that, and we met him, and he showed us around, and we fell in love with these places here. And we really experienced what we had dreamt in our most beautiful dreams, right? First of all, very welcoming people, beautiful landscapes.
Yes, this is Ramachandran with you. She was the
Naveen Ramachandran was back then. He was with you, with us, and he was showing us all these different smells and the different flowers. I mean, there are flowers that smell like garlic, like lemon, like orange. I mean, amazing flowers. Then these fruits I never tasted. All these chico and custard apple, and then all these different bananas. I mean, back then I thought there are 9 different bananas. Now I know better. There are many, many more different bananas. And it was amazing. And the different fish. And
when did the Kanthari? When did you bite a Kanthari in Kerala?
Exactly. And then one day I bit into a Kanthari, and that was making me jump immediately, and sweat was running down my face, and I was very alert, very awake, I must say. And in this moment I asked, what was that? And they said, you bit in a Kanthari. And then I liked the name, and I started to study it. And I heard about the medicinal values, and I heard about how it's purifying the blood, how it's lowering the blood pressure, how it makes you awake much more than coffee can do, how it's growing in the backyards of Kerala. And I thought, you're not talking just about a plant.
Small and so effective. So that is the most appropriate term. And that's why I think you chose it. I remember when you were talking about it that time.
It's very
appropriate, because those who hear it for the first time and don't know what Kanthari is will wonder what it is. They'll try to look for a full form, Kanth, whatever it is. But anyway, this is a great thing that you found a Malayalam word for your institution. I was the other day at this Venda. Have you heard of them? Those who are working against drugs. There is an organization called Venda. That's also Malayalam. You know, Venda means you don't need.
Venda means I don't want.
You don't need it. So, but they're saying
they're
called Venda. That is their name. That means what is it that you don't want? You don't want drugs. It's very effective. These are the only 2 cases where I know organizations in Kerala given Malayalam names to the for them. So Kanthari and Venda go together in 2 different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
But then here it was not a blind school, but you started something different, right? Social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
How did you change from focus on blind to marginalized communities all over the world?
So well, we looked at some point we zoomed out a bit. So we looked at our planet Earth and we saw that, well, the planet is in a crisis. You look at the news at night, and the newsreader it says every day, good evening. That's where they start with. And then 10 minutes after, you wonder, good evening? It's so terrible, the news that you hear. So, and there's so many social issues that need to be solved. And for us, if you start or want to start an organization, the word says it, you need to be organized. And it doesn't matter if you start an organization, a school for blind people, or a women empowerment program, or an environmental project, right? Exactly. So it doesn't matter. You need to have a few basic parts, in place. And that's one: you have to have policies, you have to have good agreements, you have to have your accounting system in place, you have to have good communication skills to explain what it is that you do. There has to be reporting. You have to develop curricula. There's a lot of similar elements to running an organization, and that's basically what we do at Kanthari. So we provide everyone that carries a plan for social change that they can apply. And once they're being selected, the selection process is very tough, because it's not, we don't, our success is not the amount of people that we train, but the amount of people that actually start and run organizations, because that's where the impact is happening. And so once you get through this selection process, you come here, and 7 months, very intense, hands-on experiential learning. Then another 3 months after you go out is where they get mentorship from Kanthari graduates, so that are from their region, and that's how they start their project. So within 1 year, so 1 year course, 2 months online to start with, 7 months here, and 3 months at home.
And you started with Indians before you went off to a global search, right? No, did you start with Indian students or Indian candidates?
You're not audible. So we came here first in 2004, December 2004. In 2005, we registered. And after that, we built a campus. And then in 2009, we started with the first course. And this was immediately with people from around the world.
Right. Can you tell us, Sabriye, about the course? What exactly do you try to train them on?
Yes. One important thing is that we want them to go through whatever we went through when we started our Tibet project. So everything that we had to do, project planning, fundraising, speeches, we had to go around the world and do a lot of speeches. We also had to, of course, work with teams. We had to find our teams. HR, very, very important, right? Trying to overcome barriers to change, try to change people's perceptions. And all these are very, very important elements of starting and running a social venture. Now, we put this all together. We made a big list, a big bucket list, and we put this all together and created a journey. And it's called the Journey in 5 Acts. And the Journey in 5 Acts is a very, very organically driven curriculum, hands-on, experiential learning, because we believe that people will learn much, much better when they do and when they fail. In many educational systems, unfortunately also in the Indian educational system, failure is not really an option, right? You are trained to succeed, and you never really learned how to fail gracefully and how to stand up again and learn from your failures and do something really good out of it, or make something really good out of it. So what we do here in this very hands-on, very intense curriculum, we make them fail, we make them do mistakes so that they are never doing these mistakes again. We are bringing them through a fictitious world in the very, very beginning. So they are learning in this fictitious world how to set up a project in a fictitious world. And then the mistakes they are making, and we are pressing them into making mistakes, or we are pushing them into making mistakes. But the mistakes they will probably would have done once they had started an organization in their own country. So they are not beginners anymore. Once they are gone out of here, they're not beginners. They know how to run teams, they know how to brand their organizations, and they have very, very important financial skills. And they are, what for us is very important is that they are reliable, that they are ethical, and that they are standing out there and creating a better image of the NGO world, because the image, unfortunately, is not very good for whatever reasons. But that is for us very, very important.
Well, I met several of your graduates, I think 2 or 3 batches. What I was struck with was the new kind of confidence they had. They had only 7 or 8 months with you, but they were full of spirits. Like they have just, consumed a Kanthari or whatever. So how did you bring about that change, that magic? Because they all came from rather poor backgrounds. Maybe they didn't have any business to do in their own country. And the transformation, you say 5 acts, is it because of a Shakespearean play? Normally Shakespearean play has 5 acts.
Yeah, exactly.
whether you built it like that. But whatever it is, that spirit of adventure and the spirit of and the kind of confidence that I found in them were quite remarkable. So I don't know what the secret of it was.
I think one of the parts is when they come to Kanthari, suddenly they're in an environment where they are with peers that believe in each other's dreams. They're all dreamers in that sense, but they also believe in the dreams that people bring. And some of them, they came from parts where they would never have been given a chance. Either they were not educated, and that doesn't matter for us if somebody was educated or not, as long as they speak colloquial English, they have an understanding of English, then
And they have a dream.
and they have a dream to create a social project.
Yeah.
And so they have basic computer skills. That's basically it. So we have people with PhDs, we have people that were never in school. That doesn't matter. It's the, when we put these people together, there is some kind of a magic happening because they see that things are possible. And for us, of course, what is very key is that we can show projects that were done by Kantharis, so that there is evidence, right? There's evidence right there. They were here and they started a project and they changed the lives of several thousand people. So that gives them a lot of courage as well, I think. And towards the end of the course, when they present their speeches, they're called Kanthari Talks. We just had it last week. That's where they are really on a high, and then they go home and they are ready to start.
Yeah.
What percentage of your graduates started their own business back home? Almost all?
So we have trained altogether now 242 participants from 50 different countries, 50, and they have started more than 140 organizations. So it's about two-thirds.
And they are reaching about 50,000 beneficiaries, right? I mean, they have a huge impact. So it's not businesses. Some start social businesses, but most of them start social organizations such as schools, empowerment centers for women, peace projects, peace initiatives, environmental projects, very, very important, agricultural projects, organic agriculture, afforestation, cleaning projects of lakes and rivers.
Alternative education.
Alternative education. So it's a huge or a vast range of projects. And that makes it also very, very nice to fuse all these different projects together and have people with and without disabilities together in one place and have basically a really inclusive center here. I think that also makes the difference. Now, of course, we had our passion. When we went to Tibet, we had our passion and we were burning for something. What we are looking out for is people who are burning and people who just get up in the morning and say, this is what I really want to do. Because when you are getting up in the morning and you really are passionate about something, you are not working, you are living for it. And I think this whole atmosphere in Kanthari also nurtures this passion. And therefore, maybe you have this feeling, hey, these are strange people. But in fact, they're not so strange because we do have people amongst us who are passionate for something. Not everybody is allowed to live their passion, unfortunately.
But is there a demand for your course in Kerala itself?
Yeah, definitely.
But you could definitely help with, or this program hopefully helps to reach out to them because they're hard to find.
Yeah.
We had this issue that there was a blind young woman from Cochin, and her mom said, well, it's too dangerous going all the way to Trivandrum. That same day, we had a blind participant from Peru who traveled all the way by herself through Spain, through Delhi, and then she went on a train and she came down here by herself. And it's not only blind people, of course, right? So we're looking for people that have overcome some kind of adversity so that they can address that same issue, and that creates that change from within. They are part of the target group. They know, they know the problem. They know the cultural background. They know the context of the history in that particular reason. They basically are part of the change they want to see, literally, and that's what they're going to go for. So that's for us a very important selection criteria.
And I think especially in this time where one crisis is hunting the next crisis, we need people who are looking for solutions, who are not just stuck in the problem, but who are finding ways out of the chaos and who are still positive to find the right solutions and the right visions for a future that is actually not foreseeable. And therefore, I think definitely Kanthari there is a demand not only in Kerala, everywhere else in India, but also everywhere else in the world. There is a demand for Kantharis, and we want to spread the spice from Kerala throughout the world.
So what are your plans for the future? Are you going to expand further, take more people from Kerala? What is your...
A lot of people, this is the growth model. Sabriye and I, we have an organic growth model. So Kanthari as the organization, as we have it here, is not going to grow. So every year we train between 20 and 25 people, and that's how it's probably going to be as well. We have a great team that is focusing on these people in the best way possible so that they're ready to start organizations when they go home. But the impact, of course, is every year is expanding a little bit by the number of people that start new projects. And that's our growth model in that sense.
Yeah. So they are going home, they are starting their own organizations, and their own organizations have sometimes much more beneficiaries than we ever could have, right? There's one guy in Nigeria who's running the first organic farm training center, and he has about 3,500 beneficiaries, right? And this is something that we could never do because we are working so intense with each one of them that our quality would go down the drain.
Have you tried to learn about the social problems of Kerala, or that is not in your...
Well, the way we work is we want people to, if anyone sees a social issue that they want to address, they can come and apply to Kanthari.
Social or environmental.
Social environmental,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So they can come and apply here, and then they get the skills to change that in their community.
Shall I give two examples from Kerala, just from this year? And people can also look at the Kanthari talks from last week. There's, for example, Abhilash. He is from Kerala. He lived in Ahmedabad for a long time. And he says, look, we are a very young nation in all over India. We are young, we are energetic, but why is there so little output? Why is there so little, or why are many not in professions where they create inventions, or where they do sports, or where they do something exemplary? And he feels that there is a lot of pressure from parents who basically pushes a lot of people into either becoming a doctor or an engineer. And if somebody wants to break out of that, there is not really there's not really an open ear for that. And he says, well, let us free, then we still can go into engineering, and then we can go into engineering and want to be engineers. But first of all, set us free to decide by ourselves without any push from outside. And he creates this great Indian treasure hunt where youngsters are, first of all, going for 8 months and volunteering, planting trees, making social projects everywhere in India. For 8 months, they have their free time to discover India, discover themselves especially, and maybe their own dreams. Then there is Akina. Akina is from the north of Kerala, and she was part of the flood relief, and she woke up actually in the floods. She was studying environmental science, and then only in the floods in 2018 she understood that something needs to be done. Now she is young, and she wants to change Kerala from within, also from the youngsters in Kerala who are basically training elderly people or adults what to do, not only to do reactions on floods, but also to do prevention, flood prevention, planting trees, cleaning water bodies, and so on and so forth. So that actually what happened in 2018 will never happen again, because she says it's not only a natural disaster, it's also a man-made disaster. And there are a lot of Keralites who are very much into environment, which is great. However, they don't really have the, they don't really get the push from their families to also do something, because a lot of parents are worried, if you are doing this, then you might not earn enough money and you might not find the right person to marry. And all these concepts are in danger. And I think we have to rethink. The future is uncertain, and now we have to rethink. And the regular professions that we had yesterday are not going to be there tomorrow as well. And we have to give youngsters the possibility to invent and to be free to find new solutions for old and new problems.
Well, the impression I got was that you were specializing in one thing. Though you are in Kerala, you're not really intervening in the local issues, right? That
No.
That's
We just
why you are most welcome. Suppose you had tried to, attend to issues in Kerala, then it would have become controversial. So
Yeah.
the government is pleased with you because of that, right?
Yeah, I think the government is happy that we are there, especially, and we are actually quite happy about the support we got. By the way, from you, TP, we got a lot of support, and we want to thank you for that.
I only got
but also,
that was my only job. Now you seem to be getting the visas freely, and so you don't call me anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
it has a lot improved. So you must have had that lasting impression.
Exactly. But in this year, for example, in this COVID stressed year of 2021, the government allowed us to have an offline course, and I think we were one of the very, very few institutes in all over India that was allowed to have people from all over the world here. And we are very, very grateful for that. Of course, we made absolute caution, or we were very cautious about safety measures. We were making very much sure that people would not go out or take an unnecessary risk, that they would wear masks. Everybody got vaccinated. At least nobody got sick. And this is something that was the highlight of the year, that we got through with a whole generation without having anyone being falling ill.
Because it's such a beautiful place, natural surrounding, the water, greenery.
Absolutely.
There's no place for viruses there, I suppose. That probably is it.
Yeah, probably
more than anything else, that the good work you do, who wants to harm you? You're all the way from Germany, from the Netherlands to Tibet, and come to Kerala and doing some good work, not only for Kerala, but also for the world. So you can't. I'm so glad that I have been able to know you in the past few years, and also to have a conversation like this, because never had a conversation sitting down and talking about your work. And now we are doing it for the audience too, and I'm sure they will understand what you're doing and also enjoy and understand the spirit in which you are working, and will be much appreciated. Next time you walk around the street, they'll say, "Oh, you are the one on T with TPS." Right? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best. Have a nice trip to Germany and come back.
Thank you.
We'll meet you.
Thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be around. I'll be here.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.